everyone, welcome to yet another episode of the Gypsy Jazz Top 10 with Chris and Brad. My name is Chris.
And I'm Brad.
And today we're going to discuss a hot topic amongst Gypsy Jazz guitar players. How do you amplify your guitar?
Flaming hot.
Yeah. So, well, actually there is not so many options. So instead of like making each of us making our own top 5, we thought about it, we talked about it, and we came up with a joint top 10.
Which is one of the problems, that there's not so many options. That's why we decided to make this video.
It can be a real problem, and if you have any experience with trying to amplify your guitar, you know it can be a real pain. And then you can have the most expensive guitar, the best sounding guitar, and there's no way to get that sound across in a bar or even in a concert hall without it sounding like a cheap...
It sounds like you're playing a $200 electric guitar.
Right. So we've did the research, we've tried many options, and we came up with a list that I actually think is pretty good.
It's pretty helpful.
Let's get started.
So before we get started, I want to take a little quick moment to talk about preamps, because I feel that preamps are essential no matter whether you use a pickup or a mic, because with a mic there's an EQ.
Yep.
So you can change how you want your sound of your guitar to be, which really helps with some pickups, because otherwise it sounds like a muddy, bassy
cardboard box.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you use a mic, to me it's absolutely essential, because you can cut feedback when you use a mic, and to me that's the biggest disadvantage of using a mic, is the feedback issues you get when you're playing in a small club or you have to turn up really loud. Feedback is always a really big concern, and these preamps have an EQ where you can find the signal that's causing feedback and cut it, and they also sometimes have an invert switch.
Yeah.
And so, but you have a really nice.
I did the research. I agree with you about preamps. Yeah. They deliver extra power, especially if you have a small amp.
Yeah.
Right. Usually, when I play small gigs, it's in the center of a town, and here in the Netherlands, you could drive, but you have to pay so much parking that you would spend more on parking than you would actually make during the gig. Yeah. So then you have to take a small amp. So you can take public transport, but then the amp needs extra power. So then the preamp is also good only for that, for extra power.
That's a good point.
But then there's a notch filter for the feedback, and there's the great preamps by LR Baggs. You have one, right? And you have the LR Baggs Venue. That's a great one. Fishman makes a couple of great ones. But they all lack one thing, it's phantom power. So if you want to use a microphone, we're going to talk about microphones, a very popular one. Some have like an option to use batteries, but if you have a microphone that doesn't have a battery option, then you need to be able to supply phantom power. And this one, by Headway, actually does supply phantom power. It has a notch filter, it has great EQ, and it has 2 channels. So you can use a small amp. We did it a couple of times.
Yeah, we've done this together. You just bring your preamp.
And it's very powerful, and then you can use 2 instruments. So if you're in the market for a preamp, take a look at the Headway EDB1.
Yeah, and actually that was a really good point. What you brought up is that, like, in the metro in Paris, even an amp this big is way too big to be taking on the metro. So you really, the name of the game is to get as small as an amp as you possibly can get. So if you have a preamp, it also adds that extra benefit, which is actually pretty huge.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So we just finished talking about preamps, and now we're going to talk a little bit about actual amplifiers.
Yeah. Yeah. So talking about amps, there's a couple of great options for acoustic instruments. One that's really popular is the AER, and I think it's a great amp, but it doesn't work well with every kind of amplification. So we'll be talking about that later. The amps I prefer over the AER, and they're a little bit cheaper, are the Roland acoustic amps. And you have them in several sizes. I actually use the smallest one, and sometimes I play a gig and I amplify both the guitar and the violin over that small amp. And I use a preamp, and it's loud enough and has a very good sound. For me, the best acoustic amps are the ACUS or ACUS. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's ACUS. The problem is, though, they're very heavy. So that's not an option for me. But if you're looking for a really good acoustic amp, that's a good option. What is your?
And they're small. They're small, but they're just really.
Yeah, the footprint is not big, but it's just like 8 kilograms or 10 kilograms, and that's for me that's too heavy to carry around in like a bus or something.
Yeah. And for me, when I was in LA, I had a Fishman and a Fishman acoustic amp.
Yeah.
And to me, that was very comparable to an AER, but at a fraction of the price. Because I also like AERs, and when I can use them, of course I use them. But to me, they're just too expensive. And the context that you use them, it's a small amp meant for like small bar gigs.
Yeah, yeah.
And to me, I don't feel comfortable walking around with like an €800 amp, taking it on the metro, then taking it to a bar and having it beaten up, you know? It's like an extra thing to worry about. It's too expensive. Like, it's not really a concert venue amp, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of meant for something where it could be damaged.
What do you use?
So now in Paris I have a small Vox amp.
Oh, Vox.
Yeah, it's really, really small, and it's really light, and it has a tube in it.
Yeah.
So which brings us into this next thing is that so if I want to go acoustic with a microphone, it's fine. But if I want to have a pickup and I want to put a little gain on, I have that choice, and it sounds really nice. And also, of course, if a vocalist wants to plug into my amp, they have a mic input with the tube, and so it also is good for that. It's kind of like a dual purpose.
But the one thing to consider is, it's like there's transistor amps, like the AER and the Roland, and you have tube amps.
Yeah.
One thing to consider is that tube amps tend to darken the color of the sound.
Yeah.
So if you have a very bright guitar, a tube amp, it can be very nice, but if you have a dark guitar, it might be a problem with the tube amp.
Muddies it up.
Well, yeah, it can muddy it up. Of course, if you have a kind of a trebly kind of pickup.
Yeah.
Right? But that's something to consider. Transistor amps are a little bit cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, like, you know, of course, if you have an electric guitar or a pickup on your Gypsy Jazz guitar, nothing beats like a really good tube amp, like a Blues Junior or something. Yeah. But like a Blues Junior, like, yeah, good luck if you have like a Jeep in Hawaii or something, you know, and you can take that to all your gigs. But if you're sitting around on the metro or something with this giant amp, it's impossible.
That's true. Yeah. Well, let's get to our top 10.
Yeah. Okay, so the third component of amplifying a guitar is, of course, the mic or the pickup. Okay, so now we're going to start with the number 10 of the mics and pickups, so why don't you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so for the number 10 we decided on a very good option, but this only works in a concert hall. Or like maybe you have a concert in a living room, but it has to be quiet, and you need to have a good like audio system. So then my preferred option is the Neumann mic KM184, and I have it, but I can't show it because we're using it right now to record our voices. And then you point, I have another mic here which is similar, I will talk about it in a minute, but then you point the mic not like directly at the sound hole, but at the 12th fret, maybe under an angle. And it produces a very nice acoustic sound, very natural, and these mics, they have a kind of a boost in the upper range, so the guitar sounds brilliant.
Yeah, and why doesn't it work if it's not perfectly quiet?
Feedback.
Yeah.
Feedback, it will kill you. Yeah. And there's no notch filter that can help you with that. And you'll be so miserable.
There's no notch filter that can save you.
No. So, but if you, and the Neumann mic is very expensive. It's like $800.
Oh wow, I didn't know it was that expensive. Huh?
But then, nowadays, there's Chinese knockoffs that are very good, and I had one here. It's an MXL 603, and it sounds exactly the same, because I A-beat it, and you can hear a difference, and especially not in a live situation, or when you're listening to audio recorded. I mean, you can use it in the studio on like regular headphones. Yeah. So you could also buy this one, and it's like 100 euros. So that's a great option if you have concerts, and you want to buy a mic which you can use both in a live situation and to record your album. Either the Neumann KM184 or this MXL. Right? Nice. But it's number 10 because that's the only instance you can use them.
Yeah, okay.
Like concerts.
Yeah, it's not too practical.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's
go to our number 9. Our number 9 is another microphone, also most suitable for concerts, quiet rooms. It's a little bit better than our number 10 because the feedback issues are less. Because it's a super cardioid. The last one's a cardioid. This is a super cardioid, and it's the DPA 4099. And DPA, of course, is one of the top brands of microphones. They make really nice microphones. And this is a great microphone you can use for many instruments. You can use them for violin, you can use them for clarinet or woodwind, and you can use them for guitar. You just need to change the the mount.
The mount, yeah.
Stochelo played with this for a while. I think Antoine Boyer is playing with it.
Yeah, I've seen some videos of him playing with it.
It produces a great clear sound, and of course it's not on the stand, so you can move your instrument without changing the sound. The problem is, I was using it for a while, and I was convinced that it would work in a in a jazz club or like a bar, but I was wrong.
Dead wrong.
I was trying the notch filter all night long, didn't help, and in the end I was miserable.
And again, there's no notch filter that can save you.
No, there was no notch filter. So that was the last time I actually used it in a bar, and now I never use it because then I prefer, if I'm in a concert hall, to use the Neumann, because I can create more distance between my instrument and the microphone, and especially with violin, it sounds nicer if there is a little bit of air between it. So it's a good option. Maybe guitar even better for violin, but again only in concert halls. Yeah. Let's go to number 8.
Okay, so number 8 on our list is maybe the most well-known method of amplification for these Gypsy jazz guitars, and that's the big tone piezo, and it's installed in the bridge. And this is like the only method that it comes included already in a lot of guitars. A lot of beginners use this style to amplify because the biggest advantage is just plug and play.
Right.
You just sit down, you plug in, you don't have to worry about feedback, you don't have to worry about anything, and it works. So that's incredible. And I still think, and that's why it's on our list, because I still think it's very valuable for that. But the disadvantage is that it's the biggest offender of horrible Gypsy jazz guitar sound possible. And there's some musicians, like I think Moses, and Paulus, they use it, and it sounds okay. But
there's a system to it, because the origins of the big tone, a lot of people don't know that, but Stochelo told me that his uncle, I think it was Wasso Grunholz, was searching for a way to amplify the guitar. He didn't play concerts, but he played in like private events for like family. But then the guitar was not loud enough, so he was searching for a way to amplify it, and it wasn't working with like the cheap microphones they had back then, and there wasn't all the other options we're going to talk about. So he took a big tone from another guitar and he installed it in the bridge of a Gypsy jazz guitar, and it was revolutionary. And there were people traveling from all over the world to see how he did that. And then it got really popular, and Stochelo started using it. But if you use a really good amp that suits the big tone, and I've heard that the 2 amps that are best with the big tone are either AER or Trace Elliott amp. Well, Trace Elliott amps are hard to get them, and then you can get a pretty good sound. So Paul is using it with success, and Moses.
So in other words, it's not easy to get a good sound with a big tone. It's something you have to work.
And it is still a big tone sound, right?
It's like everyone refers to it as like the quack of a duck.
You can make it nicer, but you can always hear it's a big tone. It doesn't have a character. We're going to talk about other pickups with a certain sound, but it has a kind of character, kind of sound that is
cartoonish.
Or sweet to your ears, but the big tone sound is like, it's a big tone sound.
Cartoonish, And I guess another advantage that we should also mention is that it's out of the way. You just pull out your guitar and you plug directly into the back. There's nothing hanging out. You don't have to take anything out and plug it in, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, that's true. You're ready in 1 minute.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the big tone. That's what we think about that. So let's go on to the number 7. So now we're on number 7, and I personally don't have any experience with this microphone, so I'm going to give it away to you, Chris.
It's a microphone that is not very popular, but some people, they swear by it. For instance, Stefan Rembel, he plays with this microphone only, I think. And it's the Ishel. I have it right here. And it's on number 7 because it is very feedback resistant. That's great. But, and that's the main problem, there's 2 problems with it. First of all, you attach it on your guitar with sticky stuff, like white sticky stuff. It doesn't damage your guitar, but it is white, so it gets dirty and it just looks awful. So that's one thing I don't like about it, but of course it has nothing to do with the sound. But Ishel claims that it is possible to get a great sound if you find the right spot on your guitar. Well, I've tried it on 2 different guitars, and you need a lot of EQ to actually make it sound sweet.
Okay.
And I managed to do it 1 gig, and I was in love with the mic because it was very powerful. It sounded great, great balance across the strings. But it was the only gig I actually managed to get that sound.
Okay.
So in other gigs I got a reasonably good sound, but not the sound. So I was fiddling with the EQ all night, and then I spent 2 hours trying every possible spot on 2 different guitars, and I couldn't get that sound back.
Yeah.
Right. So probably it's possible to get this good sound every time.
Yeah.
But then you need to experiment a lot, and then you need to know your amp, and the EQ setting of your amp have to match the EQ settings on your. It's just too much of a hassle.
It's a lot of work.
Plus, there is a microphone higher on the list, which is very similar and doesn't have these problems.
Oh, and then the only thing I want to bring up is how you're talking about that you have to use like Parafix, or I don't know what that is in English, but the stuff where you put on to attach to things, and it's almost like sometimes when I'm doing that, you know, I have some of the Parafix in my gig bag, and then I take it out, it's dirty, and I'm rubbing it on my guitar, and I'm thinking, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, you have electric, it's 2016, we have electric guitars that just plug in and they're ready to go, and I'm like using this little glue and putting it on my wood.
So if you deliver your product with this kind of thing, then make sure it's the best kind. And I don't think Ishel delivers the best kind.
Okay. Okay, so now number 6.
Yeah, number 6. The number 6 mic is a mic I was referring to earlier when I was talking about the Ishel. And it has the same kind of system with a microphone, a contact microphone, which you glue on your guitar. And because after the Ishel, I like the system, but I was searching for another contact mic, which maybe would be better. And I found this AKG C411 PP, it's called. You have 2 varieties. One is with a preamp or with batteries, and one is without. And because I have a preamp which delivers phantom power, I took the one without the batteries.
Yeah.
And actually I found that this worked much better than the Ishel. First of all, the sticky stuff that they deliver with it is much better. It's easy, it's black, you know? So it never gets dirty. It's much easier to put on the guitar, it's much easier to take off. So, and it sticks better. Also, it was easier for me to get a good sound with this microphone. Still need to EQ a lot. But the only disadvantage with like comparing with the Ishel is that it is a little bit more prone to feedback.
Okay.
So if it's really loud, this is not an option. But if it's not that loud and you want the sound of a microphone but still attached to your guitar, this is a really good option.
Okay.
Right. So number 6. So we're going to our number 5. Yeah.
Number 5 on the list is the Steamer pickup from Dupont, and I had this. It was the first pickup I ever got. So after getting a mic, I decided, okay, I want to try getting a pickup to get a more electric sound and something that I don't have to fiddle with for 20 minutes at every show. You know, 'cause sometimes when you're late to a gig, you just want to sit down and play. You don't want to think, I got to get there, I got to put in my preamp, I got to adjust everything. No, I just want to play. And sometimes, okay, I've been almost late to some gigs, you know. So if you have a pickup, so I said I'm going to try this out. So at that time, I only knew about the Steamer. And I think that was really before, because now there's a lot of pickup choices, but before, for a very long time, it was only the Steamer.
Didn't Django play with the Steamer? But not the Dupont Steamer, but he played with so what's called the Steamer.
And the Dupont Steamer is like the Steamer reissue. Yeah. And so, you know, I bought this, and it gets the job done, and it really has the sound. But I mean, the reason it's not higher up on the list is because, and since it's kind of the first and all the other pickup makers kind of learned from it, you know, is that there's balance issues. And for example, this is something that most people know about this pickup, that the B string is extremely loud.
Yeah.
And it gets picked up much more than the other strings. And the low strings, the EADG, they're not picked up as well. Yeah. So usually there's a volume imbalance. And you could kind of compensate a little by adjusting the the angle, and this also goes into all the other issues with the other pickups of like how to fix the balance. And you can adjust the angle of where you put the pickup, and then also people get into a big discussion about strings.
Right.
I don't want to get into that right now.
But it's a magnetic pickup, so because the Gypsy strings, there's a problem because 2 strings
aren't wound.
Aren't wound.
Yeah, exactly. So, but with the Steamer, I felt that had the biggest balance issues, and then Yeah, and so that's kind of that was my biggest issue with it, and then also it's not as powerful as the other pickups that we're going to talk about down the road.
And isn't there like an issue? I'm not sure. Isn't there an issue with like the cables attached to the pickup, and if it breaks, you need to buy a whole new pickup, right?
No, because the model I had a separate cable.
Okay.
But I know there are some steamers where the cable's attached. If that's the case, trouble.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, trouble. So it worked well, but it's just in case the cable breaks, you can replace the cable.
Let's go to a number 4. The number 4 is a pickup which you referred to earlier by saying that the Steam was the first, but then there were other makers making this similar kind of magnetic pickup with improvements. And this one is the Guzz, right?
Yeah, the Guzz.
And you used it for some time? You still have it?
Yeah, I still have it and I still use it actually. There was a Guzz Model 1 that came out, and you got to be careful if you get this because it was thick. And that was actually another issue about the steamers, that it's thick. And so it doesn't work with a lot of more modern guitars that have lower action.
Yeah.
You can't fit it. So actually it doesn't work.
Or lower fretboards, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it would stick out too much. And so Jorge Guzman, the guy that makes the pickups in Spain, he made a Model 2, and it's much thinner. And so you can fit it. I've never seen a guitar that you can't fit it under.
But what is better about it from the steamer?
To me, it was better than the steamer with the balance issue.
Okay.
It's better balanced, and it's not as finicky. It's easier to get a good balance. You don't have to sit there messing with it for a very long time. And of course, the biggest advantage is that it fits in every guitar.
Okay. Yeah. To me, I didn't own a Guzz, but what I noticed is the knob looks very big.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that on your guitar?
Yeah.
And Alban used it for many gigs, and he was always fiddling with it to get a good sound, and he was pretty annoyed.
Yeah, you have to fiddle with it, and then my biggest issue with the pickup is that it's not too powerful.
Also,
that to me is the biggest issue with the pickup, is that it's not too powerful.
But with preamp, you can solve it with a preamp, right?
Exactly. If you have a preamp, don't even worry about it. And it's our top 4.
That's
so
number 3.
Number
4.
Yeah, it's number 4. So it's still an incredible pickup, you know. But sometimes if you need more power, if you don't have a preamp, out of luck.
So now we'll get to the real deal, the top 3.
Yeah.
What we think are the 3 best options, and number 3 is really special. Let's head to that part.
It's really special.
Yeah.
Okay, so our number 3, how you're mentioning how they're a little special. So number 3, it's interesting because the technology's been around for a very long time. You know, a lot of these mics are kind of recent, and the pickups, how we were just talking about, it's something also really recent. So actually, number 3 is a throwback to really old technology, actually. And it's the electric guitar. And actually, with the electric guitar, it's definitely a possibility, and a lot of musicians, especially in Paris, use it, not just for aesthetics, but for practicality. And most people have an electric guitar sitting around, and if you have an arch top or something like that, you can get an incredible Django sound, late Django's tune with the late Django tone with this kind of a guitar. And you have an electric guitar setup too.
Well, because I think you're exactly right. In the beginning you think, no, I want to play Gypsy Jazz, I want to use a Gypsy Jazz guitar, and a lot of times it is about that, right? People hire you for a Gypsy Jazz gig, and they expect you to show up with a Gypsy Jazz guitar. And but it is possible to get a good sound suitable for Gypsy Jazz with an electric guitar. And I also invested in, well, it's not really, the money is like, well, it's not nothing, but compared, because we were talking about it, if you buy a good Gypsy Jazz guitar, let's say starting at
1,000 euros.
Well, let's say 1,500, right? Like really good, like 2,000. Then you need to buy a pickup, so that's another 300. You need to buy an amp, you need to buy a preamp. So to get a good sound, you're looking at 3,000 to start. Now I have an option, which is 600 in total, and it sounds great.
No, it sounds great.
You can get this like late Django sound with a little bit of distortion from the gain of the tube amp. So, for instance, what I use for those kind of gigs is this Black Star tube amp. It's really small, it's light, it's powerful, it has this gain knob and you can add some distortion, and I have this Chinese, it's a Gibson ES-125 knockoff.
Yeah.
It's a Delore LH309, and it's 430 euros. And you played it.
It's incredible.
It sounds great. Now you have to get a little bit lucky with these Chinese guitars. You have to try them out, because if you order them online, I know on YouTube there is a review of this guitar that says the most awful thing, and that can happen if you order them online. But if you try them and they are set up well, this is incredible. For that money, I mean, in total, we're talking about 650 euros, and you can get this jungle sound suitable for gypsy jazz. You can play rhythm. You can play rhythm on this guitar, especially because it doesn't have a cutaway, so it has a good acoustic sound even. It's a good option.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that it's a good option because okay, you have your gypsy jazz guitar, you have a nice microphone. When you want that sound, you can get that sound. But if you have a bar gig, a loud cafe gig, or something in a really small loud area, you can pull out an electric guitar that you probably already have sitting around.
Yeah, but let's say you don't have money and you want to play gypsy jazz. And you're looking at 3,000 euros, then this is a better option. Maybe you already have this suitable guitar, then you just need to buy a small tube amp and you're ready. So even though it might sound lame to say, well, our number 3 option is electric guitar, if you think about it, it's kind of reasonable.
Especially when some of the pickups are the same price as that guitar.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And this guitar, for instance, has a P90 pickup.
It's a very good pickup.
I mean, there's a lot of research behind the P90. It sounds great.
Yeah.
So, well, of course, we don't want to make that our number 1. And we want to stick with the gypsy guitar. So our like top 2, we're going back to the gypsy jazz guitar. So let's get to our number 2.
So number 2 on our list is the Telecaster. I don't know, I'm just kidding. So number 2 on our list is actually the Audio Technica mic. It's this bad boy right here. And this is maybe one of the most, it's not maybe, it definitely is one of the most common ways to amplify a gypsy jazz guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, so many professionals use it, and whenever you see someone's mic clipped to their guitar, it's with an Audio Technica.
Yeah, some people have it clipped inside the guitar. I tried that. It's impossible because my microphone keeps dropping.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's actually a lavalier mic, right? It's designed to
It's not meant for gypsy jazz.
Well, no. You get like 2 clips, 2 like what do you call it, attachments?
Yeah, mounts. Yeah.
Mounts. One for like speech and one for guitar. And I have one. You have one. I did concerts with Stockler, he used one. I think Adem Magnard used one.
Yeah, everyone uses
and you get a very good acoustic sound.
And for a relatively cheap price.
Easy to get the acoustic sound. You don't have to EQ a lot. I mean, take some bass off. But actually there is a bass cutoff on the microphone. You have a high pass.
Because it's necessary.
You can do it with batteries. So you can use a preamp. I still think you need a preamp with this. You can use a preamp without phantom power because you can use batteries. You can bypass the batteries if you have a preamp with phantom power, and the feedback resistance is quite okay, especially when you put it in the guitar.
Yeah, put it inside. You have the option of tucking it away inside the guitar, which makes it a little boomier, but the payoff of much less feedback.
Yeah, but you can EQ the booming out. So what is the problem with these mics?
So the problem, in my opinion, like the biggest problem with these mics is that they're fragile. And I always have problems with the cable or something, because again, if the cable's broken, you have to replace the whole box.
Yeah.
You can't just, you have to get a whole new microphone. And I take very good care of my Audio Technicas, and I think I'm on maybe my 4th. It's either my 3rd or my 4th. And I take really good care of them. I don't throw them around, but just through everyday use, maybe sometimes the actual mic falls off the table.
You have to take them, you have to,
so things always happen. They always get touched, and so many times there's always been an issue. I've always had an issue, and one of my friends, Hemert, I think he's bought like 8 of them or something. But then I know people who have been using the same one for 4 years.
For me, another problem with the mic is, and that's a problem with every mic, but it's more pronounced with this mic. Like if you hit a mic with your hand, you hear a loud bang, right?
Yeah.
So because it is attached to your guitar with a cable, it's very easy to like get your foot on the cable and rip it off, and you hear a terrible sound. And for some reason that happens less with the contact microphones because it is attached at the back of your guitar.
Yeah.
So the cable goes off to the side, but here the cable is in the middle of your guitar.
Yeah.
So you have to make some kind of way to like guide the cable. But I've had that happen. Like twice maybe or 3 times even that I somehow ripped the microphone, and it's an awful sound, and that's also one way to break the microphone.
Yeah,
right?
I've had nightmares about that sound. Right now, it's making me cringe. That sound.
So, but I would say if you have a good guitar, because this will actually produce the sound of your guitar quite faithfully.
It really reproduces the sound of your guitar.
If you want the acoustic guitar sound, even in a bar, this is a good option.
It's the cheapest option.
It's
the cheapest option. It's a little fragile, but it's the cheapest option.
And actually, I think we were fighting if this was number 1 or number 2.
Yeah, but actually, and another thing I want to mention is that sometimes it's not consistent. Because I remember we were playing a bar gig and you were having problems with it.
Yeah.
And if that's at a serious concert, that you can't do that. It's, you know. So sometimes you have strange issues with the cable and there's a lot of static. Yeah.
You
so
get
that's
like crackling sound.
Exactly, and that's a huge problem, you know.
But so that we were fighting. Like, is this number 1 or number 2? And Brett said no, it should be number 1 because it produces the most faithfully reproduces the sound of an acoustic guitar. But then at the end we decided no, number 1 should be the microphone. That is the best compromise between sound and practicality.
Yeah, because in the world of amplifying Gypsy Jazz guitars, it's all compromise.
Yeah, it's compromise. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's get to our number 1. We've arrived at the number 1, the best way to amplify your Gypsy Jazz guitar, and maybe if you know a lot about this stuff, you've guessed it because we've talked about the steamer, we've talked about the Gus, but there was one missing, and one of those magnetic pickups, and it's the Pêche à la mouche, right? And why I like this best is it's very easy to install, right? You just put it on. It's small. It fits on most guitars. It even fits on my guitar, which has a very small fretboard.
Yeah, look how sexy this is. You know,
yeah,
this is the sexiest.
Right. And the cable is separate. So if the cable breaks, you can buy a new cable. It's very balanced. I still don't know how they do that. Yeah. Right? It's balanced between all the strings. So it must be some kind of EQ setting inside it.
Some kind of science.
Yeah, some kind of science. You get the electric jungle sound.
Yeah, really.
But depending on your EQ settings, it can sound quite acoustic even, really suitable for rhythm, and no feedback whatsoever. And it's very powerful. You can use it with a preamp. That's good for the EQ, but if you use it without a preamp, it's still very powerful. And people like Olli Soikeli, who plays 1 million gigs each year, if he's not in a concert hall, he always chooses the Pêche à la mouche, even though he has a big tone installed in his HL, and I'm pretty sure he tried all the other options, and it's his pickup of choice, and it's also my pickup of choice. And I know a lot of other players that use it. I know Robin Nolan uses it. Stochel uses it a bunch. You use it.
Oh yeah.
And it's not cheap.
No.
Right? It's not cheap, but it's a one-stop.
But it's worth it.
Yeah. You buy it. You know you're golden. If it fits your guitar, sometimes guitars might not fit, but you can put it on either side of the hole. Of course, it's best to put it towards the neck because it produces the most warm sound. But you can even put it on an angle. On my guitar, I have to put it on a little angle, right? And
you can crank that thing up all the way.
Right, and it has a volume knob on it, but most of them have it. But it's still great to mention.
It's powerful.
And then you can while playing, you can turn it up a little bit, and for rhythm, you can turn it down if you want to, or you can just play softer.
Or you can just play over the other person.
So, I've tried. I have all those different amplification systems, and I might use some in some situations. But let's say if it's not a concert gig, and then in 95% I would use this Pêche à la mouche because it's just like I said, you come in, you plug your guitar in, and it's immediately good, right? Maybe you roll some bass, but actually with this, I noticed that with this magnetic pickup, you don't have to roll that much bass.
No, that's true.
Partly because there's some science inside of it that makes it sound good. So I'd say definitely invest in the Pêche à la mouche, even if you want the Audio Technica, and then always take this, because if there is a situation in which the Audio Technica doesn't work, this will work for sure.
Yeah. So number 1, science.
Yeah. Pêche à la mouche. Yeah. Let's get to some final thoughts.
So after seeing how we've kind of discussed everything, we see how it's really kind of broken into 2 different groups. We have the microphones on one hand and the pickups on the other hand. And what I kind of want to hammer home is that it's not necessarily which one are you, which camp are you, like it's Twilight or something, you know? It's really breaks down into which kind of situations are you going to be in. Microphones are really good and practical in certain situations, and microphones are really good in certain other situations. So I mean, what I'm kind of getting at personally is I have both. I have a microphone and a pickup, and I use them both separately, and they both and that gives me options, and I'm always covered. And so that's how I look at it. So what are your final thoughts, Chris?
Well, first of all, is Twilight the show about vampires?
Yes.
I don't watch that. I'm not sure how many people watch that, Brad.
It's a movie.
But
I don't watch it either. But I'm culturally relevant.
This is kind of revealing. Brad Rose watches Twilight.
No.
So my final thought is that for me the most important thing, and I think a lot of people will agree, is that you're able to play the way that you want to play. Right? You practice all these hours at home and all these songs, and then you get to the gig, and then you want to actually be able to use all those skills you've developed. And the one thing that can ruin it is a bad sound. Yeah. So what can happen is that you're busy fiddling with your sound the whole gig. You'll be miserable, and you will be play badly because you're distracted, and everything will fail, and then it will be even more miserable. So whatever you decide of buying, and it's a good option to buy both, but you need the money, is that practicality, can you say that, practicality? Yeah. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we've discussed everything there is to discuss about amplification.
Oh, really?
So we see you all at the next Top 10.
See ya.